What's up, guys? It's your boy Tim once again, back with a video where I'm going to talk about some more wrestling stuff, real life, not what if type scenarios. This is again my favorite pay-per-views of all time, VHS cassettes that I used to go to the video store and rent over and over and over again, or own. I actually have a couple of WWF old VHS cassette, tapes recently. I just acquired some. But the Royal Rumble, these ones I'm going to go over are some of my favorite pay-per-views of all time, why they're my favorite, what I liked about them, what went down at the pay-per-views, etc., and stuff like that. So for this one, I'm going to start with Royal Rumble 1989. This is the first pay-per-view Royal Rumble. They had done a Royal Rumble in 88 that Hacksaw Jim Duggan won. It was only 20 men and it was on TV. This is 89. This is the first time. It's pay-per-view, and it took place on January 15th, 1989. All right, so what I like about it, again, this is the Royal Rumble is my favorite, gimmick type match. This is a pay-per-view, again, that I rented 100 times over and over again and watched over and over again, and had, it almost memorized. In a dark match, you had Jim Powers beats Barry Horowitz. Okay, you never got to see that on the VHS or DVD collection, but Jim Powers, a local guy, either from New York or New Jersey, something like that. And Sam Houston beats Steve Lombardi, a.k.a. the Brooklyn Brawler. Sam Houston, the brother of Jake the Snake Roberts. Then on the main card itself, you had Jim Duggan and the Hart Foundation, which is fun because, you didn't get to see them team up a whole lot of times. The face version of the Hart Foundation teaming up with good old Hacksaw, beating Dino Bravo and the Fabulous Rougeaus, the group of Canadians, the other Canadians. The Rougeau brothers, very underestimated tag team back then with their aerial moves and tag team moves and stuff like that. They were brothers. They were very well choreographed and stuff. Dino Bravo was just a big, muscly bodybuilder type guy, but could still work. So that's fun. It's a 2 out of 3 falls match too, so that's fun. You throw a little gimmick stipulation on there. You got Rockin' Robin also beats Judy Martin. Rockin' Robin is the women's champion. She defends the title and retains the title. Rockin' Robin and Sam Houston and Jake the Snake, interestingly enough, all siblings. And she's the women's champion at the time. That's cool. It wasn't Moolah or, Wendy Richter. This was, the era when Robin had it. And then you had Haku beating King Harley Race for the King of the Ring crown, cape and scepter and gimmick and all that other stuff. This is when Haku became King Haku. He wore that around and had all kinds of cards and posters and stuff like that as King Haku. He never won a King of the Ring tournament or anything like that, but he beat Harley Race, and this was the time that he did it, so that's fun. And so that match is on there. And then of course you got Big John Studd wins the Royal Rumble. Which is funny because nothing really ever came of it. He didn't get some big giant push after that. I mean, again, they didn't institute the winner of the Rumble gets the main event title match at Mania. They didn't institute that for a few years to come after this. But it was, I think they said it was Vince's way of giving just a nice thank you to Studd at the time. Again, and the dudes that are in this, okay, you got Axe and Smash start number 1 and number 2, and they fight each other, which is fun too. They did that. They had that spot a couple of times, I think. But then being number 1 and number 2, that's fun. Andre comes right out afterwards. He doesn't stick around too long, and it takes a lot of guys to get him out. All that other stuff, blah blah blah. But you got Mr. Perfect in there. Jake Roberts is in there. Greg Valentine, Rugged Ronnie Garvin, Shawn Michaels is in there. Honky Tonk Man, Tito Santana, Bad News Brown, Marty Jannetty, Randy Savage is in there. He gets eliminated by Hulk Hogan, which is funny. Both the Brainbusters, Hogan's in there, which is funny too. Back then, and especially when I was a little kid, if Hogan was in something in a match, I assumed he was always going to win. I feel like a lot of people did at the time. So when there would be an event and Hulk Hogan would be in it, and he wouldn't win. It was to me, it was a giant swerve. You know, it was always a giant swerve. You know, Hogan lost this Rumble. Hogan lost the '92 Rumble. You know, I think he was in I think he was in the Rumble with that Hacksaw one as well, and he lost that. I can't remember the Survivor Series match, the first ever main event Survivor Series. You know, but whenever Hogan would lose something, it was wild. So, and he's in this, and he loses. Boss Man's in it. Hercules, Ted DiBiase. The final four, it comes down to Big John Studd, Ted DiBiase, who is it? Rick Martel and Akeem. Rick Martel goes out first, then and he gets eliminated by Akeem. And then Akeem goes out. He gets eliminated by Big John Studd. It's down to Ted DiBiase and Big John Studd. He tries to buy him out. Big John Studd beats him up anyway and just tosses him out. And Ted DiBiase was one of the biggest heels, you know, at the company at the time too. So that was a big deal for him to win. And again, he didn't really do too much and go on. After that, he refereed a match at WrestleMania, and never had any big title wins. He had won the tag title, I know, in WWF a long time before this, so at least he had, that on him. But shout out to Big John Studd. I liked him. I liked the whole run with Andre and stuff like that. I thought that was cool, and the Heenan family was cool. So that's why I like that Rumble. It was just always fun to watch. It had good, solid matches. Pre-show matches, all the Haku match and the Duggan and Hart Foundation match and all that, and then it's fun seeing the face version of Big John Studd beats up $1 Million Man, gets his comeuppance, and then Studd wins. Next one I'm going to talk about, boom, the following year's Royal Rumble, 1990, baby. WWF in 1990 and those early 90 years, man, the list of people that they had contracted working for them, their cast of characters, the stablemates, whatever you want to call them, employees at the time. They had a lot of good people. Brooklyn Brawler again works a dark match. This time he loses to Paul Roma here. Bushwhackers beat the Rougeau brothers. They always did comedy matches like that with the Bushwhackers. I get it, you want to have something for the kids and make some funny thing go over or whatever, but the Rougeau brothers were awesome athletes. I feel like they deserve better than that, than to just get beat up by the Bushwhackers on kind of a comedy spot. We had Brutus Beefcake and the Genius end in a double DQ in 11 minutes. Again, I was never really a huge Beefcake fan, and the Genius I could give or take. I can respect his athleticism, but he wasn't his brother, and that match, whatever's not great. But you had the submission match here in 1990 Royal Rumble with Ronnie Garvin and Greg Valentine. Great storyline. They go back and forth. The hammer jammer, the shin pad thing, the retirement of Ronnie Garvin. He's refereeing. He comes out of retirement. And this is great. They get almost 17 minutes, and Ronnie Garvin beats Greg Valentine. That's a great match. If you go back and watch it, and that's on this pay-per-view. You got Jim Duggan beats Big Boss Man, which is pretty crazy, in 6 minutes, and in this like essential squash match. But those guys were two big giant Haas type dudes. They can always put on good shows together. And then you got Hulk Hogan wins the Royal Rumble, wins the first time he wins the Rumble here. He last eliminates Mr. Perfect. And again, the dudes you got on it, Ted DiBiase lasts number one. He goes 44 minutes. I think he's the first guy to last. I think he got the record here or something like that for longevity. You got both Rockers in it, Randy Savage and Jake Roberts and Roddy Piper. Bret Hart's in it, Dusty Rhodes is in it, Andre the Giant's in it, both Demolition's in it, Earthquake's in it, Ultimate Warrior's in it. And this is great because you got the spot here with Ultimate Warrior and Hogan have the stare down, and then Hogan accidentally sort of helps eliminate the Warrior, and that's what sets up the WrestleMania main event. Honky Tonk Man's in this. But yeah, you got it's Hogan and Perfect. The final four are Hogan and Perfect and Rick Rude and let me see, who else is the other guy that's in there? Hercules. And Hercules goes first. Rick Rude throws him out, and he's a face Hercules at the time. Then Rick Rude gets thrown out by Hogan and Perfect. And then Hogan throws Perfect like kind of into the corner, but up over the turnbuckle and over onto the floor over the turnbuckle, which is a pretty cool spot too. And Hogan's the world champ at the time. He wasn't defending the title here. And then that sets up towards WrestleMania 5, for 6, where Hogan and the Warrior have their big giant, main event, which is one of my favorite things of all time. You know, they always talk about like, oh, they didn't know if it was going to work and if it was a good idea or whatever. But I always thought that was great. You know, the two most popular guys, that was Hogan sort of trying to pass the torch and go take some time off, go make some movies or TV show, make some money that way. Warrior was like the perfect setup for the 90s with the hair and the makeup and the promos and stuff like that, but he just couldn't hold it together. But yeah, that's a great pay-per-view. Watched it all the time. That was one I owned on VHS. These are not only ones I rented from the video store, let me say that. I also owned a lot of these VHS, and I wore them out. The next pay-per-view I want to talk about is 1991. We're going to just keep rolling. We did 89, we did 90. This is 91 the following year. This is leading up to WrestleMania 7. Let me see what we got here. Okay, the Ultimate Warrior had won the title from Hogan after the Royal Rumble the previous year. He had beat Hogan, obviously, at WrestleMania and held the title till now. This was the big showdown that the Warrior had with Slaughter, and he's going to have that later. We had a dark match, though. Jerry Saggs beat Sam Houston, which is kind of a weird setup because Jerry Saggs is predominantly a tag team wrestler, and Sam Houston was usually the guy getting the wins in the dark show. But to open it up, you had the Rockers versus the Orient Express, and it's Kato and Tanaka, not with Paul Diamond. Paul Diamond was Kato, I believe, right? Paul Diamond was Kato, never mind. So you got Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka, formerly of Bad Company in the AWA, versus the Rockers, who they battled in the AWA also, so these teams knew each other very well. They got 20 minutes. The Rockers go over, which is awesome. The Rockers lost a lot on pay-per-view back then. And again, they're my favorite tag team of all time. Marty Jannetty is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. Shawn Michaels is one of my favorite wrestlers, arguably one of the greatest of all time. They lost a lot because they were the smaller guys. They lose to the Twin Towers, or they lose to Orient Express, or they lose to, the Nasty Boys or something. But here they win, and that's great, and they get 20 minutes. It's a great, that's awesome. It's a great way to open the show, too exciting. Bossman beats the Barbarian. Again, two big, meaty, sweaty guys just slapping at each other and getting it done. That's cool. 14 minutes is a long time, but they got it together. Then you had, as the third match on the pay-per-view, interestingly enough, Slaughter beats Ultimate Warrior for the world title. And then this is where Savage comes out, hits Ultimate Warrior with the scepter, breaks this thing over his face. Slaughter rolls him up, gets the pin or whatever. And now Slaughter's the champ going into WrestleMania 7 against Hogan. A rare loss for Ultimate Warrior, especially on pay-per-view. Ultimate Warrior usually won most of his pay-per-view matches. Then they go after that to the Mountie beats Coco Beware in 9 minutes, which is essentially sort of a job match. No story behind that or anything, kind of a cold match. Ted DiBiase, the Million Dollar Man, and Virgil beat Dusty Rhodes and Dustin Rhodes. Interestingly enough, Dustin Rhodes didn't get a ton of time back in the WWF. Back then, it was right when his dad was going out. They gave Dustin, sort of some TV time, and I think only a pay-per-view match or two, this being one of them, before Dustin went to WCW and became the Natural and started doing his early 90s, run as tag team champion and U.S. champion and all that other stuff. So this is one of his early first pay-per-view matches. And then again, you got the Rumble itself, Hulk Hogan as the world champion, or as the non-world champion in this match, because he had lost at WrestleMania to Warrior. Now he wins the Rumble here, last defeating Earthquake. And in this Rumble here, again, you got Bret Hart, you got Jake Roberts, you got Tito Santana, The Undertaker. This is his debut Rumble. The British Bulldog, you got Demolition and LOD are in this. A young Shane Douglas is in this Rumble, which is funny because he didn't get a lot of time on pay-per-views back then when he was contracted to WWE before he started doing more of his stuff on the East Coast. Randy Savage is supposed to be in this Rumble, but he doesn't because after he smashed Warrior, they said he left the building or whatever. Again, you got Earthquake Perfect, who was, the finalist the previous year. You got Tugboat, you got the Nasty Boys and Hart Foundation. The Final Four, so you got Hogan, Brian Knobbs is a finalist. You got Earthquake and British Bulldog. Bulldog goes out first, then Knobbs goes out by Hogan. And Hogan and Earthquake had been feuding at the time. They feuded at the previous SummerSlam, I want to say. They wrestled at the previous SummerSlam when Hogan beat him in a singles match, and this was sort of like the double end of the feud where he eliminates him last from the Rumble. I guess they had probably still been working together on house show loops and stuff like that. So Hogan goes over here. Now and again, this isn't the first. They had still not instituted the rule yet. It wouldn't be till '93 that they institute the rule of the winner of the Rumble goes on to challenge the champion at WrestleMania in the main event. But Hogan won this Rumble not as the champion and then went on to challenge Sergeant Slaughter at WrestleMania, which was the next pay-per-view after this one. So that should be duly noted as well. Hold up, I got a text message right here. And then you got 92. The next one I just want to talk about is 92. Man, there has been a lot of stuff about 92 said. There's not much that I'm probably going to be able to say about it that hasn't been said already. Chris Walker defeats a Brooklyn Brawler. Again, you got Brawler in the dark match. New Foundation beat the Orient Express again in an opener. Orient Express again does the job here to Jim Neidhart and Owen Hart, which is cool. They got almost 20 minutes. Piper wins the Intercontinental title from the Mountie, which is awesome. They do that pretty quickly in 5 minutes. You have Beverly Brothers go over the Bushwhackers. So you got the Bushwhackers again in your tag team comedy spot, but they lose this time. They never really pushed the Beverly Brothers, which is a shame too. Mike Enos and what's the other guy's name? I forget. Mike Enos and they were Minnesota guys, whatever. I forget, but anyway, they never really pushed them in WWE. Natural Disasters beat Legion of Doom by countout. Legion of Doom were champions at the time. That stinks. It's kind of the schmoz finish that you don't want to see. Nobody loses the tag title, and it's pay-per-view of all things. So, but the Natural Disasters get the win. Legion of Doom still get to keep the title. And then you got the Rumble itself, man. British Bulldog and DiBiase started off. Flair's number 3, who goes on to win it. You got Shawn Michaels, Santana, Texas Tornado, Repo Man, Valentine, Boss Man, Hercules, Piper, Jake Roberts, Duggan, IRS, Snuka, Undertaker, Savage, Virgil, Rick Martel, Hulk Hogan, Slaughter, Sid Justice, Warlord. That's just like, everybody's Hall of Fame or about to be Hall of Fame or should be Hall of Fame. And again, you got Hogan's in it, and Hogan loses. He does not win the title. And Ric Flair wins it. I gotta go. I got some baby stuff going on, but that's an awesome one. If you want to watch it, check it out. And I'll get back to you next time. All right, later. What up? I just want to add real quick to P.S. 92 Royal Rumble 1992, and I got rushed off a little before I had to go help put the baby down. That's all right. Royal Rumble 92 is arguably the greatest Royal Rumble of all time. Cast of characters wise, Hall of Famers that are in it, and the Final Four coming down to Hogan, Sid, Flair, and Randy Savage. You really don't get much of a crazier Final Four than that. Sid and Flair knock out Savage, and then Hogan gets knocked out by Sid, and then Sid gets taken out by Flair and and Hogan at the same time, and Hogan kind of doing some heelish type tactics and setting up his match with Sid and Hogan at WrestleMania 8, and Savage's inevitable match and win at WrestleMania 8 against Flair. It's a crazy Rumble, and again, a lot of big time guys: Undertaker, Jake Roberts, Rowdy Piper. It's a who's who of Halls of Fame people from the early 90s and stuff like that. A great performance by British Bulldog at 23 minutes. Great performance by Roddy Piper at 34 minutes. IRS does 27 minutes. Hacksaw does 20 minutes. Savage does 22 minutes. So a lot of good performances. Check that Rumble out if you're going to watch any of the early 90s. And it's for the world title, which is an awesome stipulation match. And an awesome stipulation with it that it's for the world title. So Royal Rumbles 89 through 92. Thanks for checking it out. I'm going to do some more wrestling review stuff and all that other, videos for that if you want to check them out for future reference, So you never know who can check these things out. So, all right, rock on.